It's a chocolate strawberry waffle today, and it would have looked better had my coconut whipped cream not melted, and besides it didn't work out great. And so what I would have rather have done is whipped up some coconut whipped cream, nice, and put it on the top, and then stuck the strawberry on the whipped cream. And I would have rather had a chocolate dipped strawberry so that it looked really fancy. But this still looks pretty good, and I think James will enjoy it. So I don't know what you're reviewing today, but I'm just going to be eating my leftover pumpkin waffle.
I think first I'll go grab a fork.
Oh, I forgot to give him a fork.
The important thing is having food.
Oh boy. Oh. I've been really tired lately, so I thought maybe I might be fighting off COVID or something, even though like I've had both of my shots, but I think it's just that I'm tired. Getting in the harvest and stuff like that is a lot of work. So what I'm going to be doing once I'm done eating is I'm going to be taking the husks off these little corns, and they're just the little ornamental corn. But you know what, we've eaten them and they're not bad, but they're better suited for grinding like into a flour or something. But I just think they look beautiful growing up against the house. So it's worth it for me to have them just to see them. Because, well, I should show you before they totally frost up, but they're past the eaves. They look lovely. So I don't think I'll weigh those, and I don't think I'll weigh my little gourds. They're very cute little gourds. Here's another one. Very sweet. Because I grow these guys just because I think they're adorable. And I love watching them climb. But I don't know where I put my... Well, that's where I put it.
You need something?
No, it's okay. You can sit down. So I'll be putting the red tomatoes into my green bowl over there. And I'll be putting my green tomatoes into here, and I'll put paper in between the layers of tomatoes. And then they'll ripen up. They ripen up in the dark under the paper.
There's a lot of them to ripen up there. There's an amazing number. Did you show people how many? I guess they'll see when you're weighing.
I must have pulled in 100 pounds. We'll see. But this is just mine. This is James's harvest. But I didn't get all of mine yet. I looked out the window and I'm like, there's still grapes right in front of the window.
Grape-like.
Well, yeah, they're tomatoes.
Tomatoes, but
they're all clustered. There's lots. So
see, Pauline harvested my place.
Yeah.
And then it was getting towards sundown.
Dark, and so I was trying to harvest mine, and I can't see very well at the best of times, honestly. And then
anyone would have had trouble.
Yeah.
It's kind of lucky. There's not a street light, but an alley light shining up. And I went back and cleaned up some of the tomatoes at my place. And when I got back there, it was dark, and I held a kind of like a work light.
Try to help me.
It wasn't meant for agricultural work.
And it wasn't working very well.
It worked okay, but no.
I said, well, I guess I'm not going to get the beans in, and forget it. We're going in. So
the beans you could see weren't
there were so
harvested.
many beans. And this was a great year for beans. It was incredible. And
they're, I think, Pauline's favorite type of beans too. Or
well, I love growing them. It's not eating them. I just love growing. I love.
Well,
the
they
look
look pretty fancy, I gotta say. And it was a good crop, both for tomatoes and a year for tomatoes and beans.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm going to weigh my beans or anything either, but I'll weigh the tomatoes. so we know, oh, that's how many we grew this year. And I'll put them in they'll ripen. You just have to check periodically. You lift up the paper and see, oh, there's a red one, and got to take them out. Because if, when they're green, they're not going to rot each other. But if you have some red mixed in there, you could lose everything. Terrible.
Fairly quickly, too, right? Now, you got some corn there, but it was maybe a little bit disappointing this year. Not in terms of the size of the plants, but the ears of corn were a little bit late. But the plants look very impressive.
Which is,
they got
that's really all I
well above the eaves, some of them. Now, they're sitting in peat bales, right? But even so, some of them might have been, if you take away the peat bales, as high as the side of the house.
Yeah, well, different varieties of corn will grow different heights, though, I should point out. Because sometimes I grow the miniature corn, and it has little cobs, and it's not very tall. It's only maybe as tall as me when it grows up.
Okay. But it's not popcorn.
No, I don't enjoy growing those little ones.
Well,
I like the big ones.
Well, the big ones are amazing because
it looks pretty impressive.
I swear
people
they
come
help
by
cool
and
the
I
house.
could see them through the window. They're like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
I'm really impressed that my corn is so huge, right?
I think it helps cool the house. Like when you cover the wall with things like that.
With plants, it helps keep the
because
house
this
cool
summer,
in the summer.
we survived. Okay.
The fan broke.
The fan broke, and we went without a fan, and of course without air conditioning. And no, I think the fan got us through the heat dome. But even so, it's. I think it makes a big difference to have that one wall covered. It's one of the two sun walls. We really don't get a lot of heat building up in the morning time.
Well, I should plant the other wall too, but I just...
It's the west-facing wall that's a problem. Because, it's right next door to a neighbor. And, no, you did have some peat bales there one summer, right?
I did. And the shelf that I built to stick them up on broke. So that was a nightmare.
Anyway, it would have been a good idea because that's when the heat builds up in this.
I know.
When the sun gets over there in the west.
I'll have to try it again. I'll build a really strong shelf, I guess maybe out of 4x4s or something.
So chocolatey type of waffles, eh? Pretty darn good.
You like that waffle?
I do, especially in combo with this is coconut cream type of stuff, and with the raspberries, of course. Anything pretty well. Sorry.
No, it would have been good with raspberries too.
Yeah, it would be.
Maybe if we have more chocolate waffle, more raspberries sometime, that'll happen for you. But this week we don't have raspberries, so this is what we have. And I'm very happy and thankful for it. I'm very thankful for this. Very tasty. So what have you been thinking about?
Well, overnight I've been hammering through
the Bible, because we've been talking about the Bible a lot.
And it's, frankly, with religion so much in the headlines, especially since 9/11, it's required reading, because there's all sorts of people saying all sorts of stupid things about all sorts of crazy religions and not so crazy religions.
Well, and it's amazing, too. There's so many people in our society. There's a high literacy rate. And
technically, yeah.
You talk to a lot of people and you get some idea. They'll say, oh, I'm Christian, this and that. And you learn more about them and you're like, are you sure you're Christian? Really?
Yeah.
Have you read the Bible? But you don't want to say that, right? But you're thinking it. And
Yeah.
there's really no excuse. If you're literate, read.
Yeah, people my age.
If you're not literate, learn.
Exactly right. And please, there's lots of people out there who will kind of read, slop through things. They're the what right-wingers call chattering classes. And they're a different kind of functionally illiterate. Their eyes glaze over and their brains glaze over even worse. So don't go around strutting around and saying you know things when you read stuff and you're functionally illiterate, like you cannot seem to absorb what your eyes are passing over. And there's way too many people like that.
Well, that actually used to happen to me. And it still happens. If I'm in a setting sometimes around other people, oftentimes I would go write a university test and I'd be okay. Sometimes I would read a sentence and every word, I couldn't put the words together into a whole sentence. I was just reading individual words. My brain wouldn't work. How can you write a test like that? You can't. So I could get 90%, and then another test I could get 40. You know, if my brain didn't want to
Process things.
then I was really pooped. So that still happens. I don't know what that is, but probably something the school system should have caught along the way, because it must be something wrong with the wiring of my brain or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of that. But what I've found is if I read in the morning, there's no distraction. And
aside from a little dog called Elvis who wants to kiss you too.
yes.
Yeah, it's like this morning.
But if I do my reading at that time, it's a lot better. And then, you know, the rest of the time I can read crappy fiction or whatever. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter. You're not learning really from that. So
even not so crappy fiction doesn't really matter that much. As we've been talking about recently. So yeah, I've been slamming through the Old Testament. I should, if everything goes okay, be ready tomorrow morning to review the Old Testament.
We were laughing last night. We should not admit to this.
No, of course we should.
Okay. Well, whatever. We were laughing a lot last night.
We were reading stuff from the
Old Testament.
Pentateuch. It was the law. So the books, you know, the Old Testament's divided law, prophets, and I guess the wisdom literature. And I think maybe they separate.
And well, some of it's absolutely.
Well, it's hilarious.
Some of it's horrible. You know, you're reading it and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, so the woman gets to be married to the rapist forever. That's wonderful for her, you know. And
if the woman is not married
and not engaged he rapes her.
If he rapes her, then it's a stoning matter. Mm-hmm. But if he's not engaged, married, then you remember what it was, right?
Yeah. The guy has to pay the father of the woman
a bribe price.
Basically a bribe, and then he has to marry the woman.
And no divorce.
No, he's never allowed to divorce her.
And that's supposed to be consolation for the woman.
That's supposed to be good for her, you know? It's
wow.
like, wow, she gets to be married to a rapist. That's terrific.
And, you know, there's nothing to stop dude from doing this, just so long as he rapes a woman who's not, a girl, I suppose, who's not engaged, not married. He could do this forever, because this is a society that practices polygamy. So, wow.
Yeah.
So we weren't really laughing at that.
Well, not at that one. We were not laughing at that one. We were the one we were laughing at is the one about the sons. If they're, what was it, disobedient or something, then you can
Children.
take them, yeah, the
Sons and daughters.
the children. Well, I think it was just the sons.
Well, it would be intended for both.
I don't know, but if it's the sons, anyway, it said sons.
Mhm.
Then if they're disobedient, then you can take them in front of the town elders and say, "Oh, my boy, he's been disobedient."
No.
And the town elders can say, "Okay, that's a stoning."
Yeah, that's right.
And
That's a
it's like-
stoning matter for being disobedient. Now, understand it's a stoning matter just for being disrespectful
Yes.
in other
And so-
places. But
Yeah, so anyway, he's the son then gets stoned. So we were laughing about it because, like I said to James, well, I doubt that parents
parent
would
would ever-
really bring them
it would
to
take
the,
a real
Yeah.
scummy parent to
So-
say, "Hey,
yeah,
kid was
exactly.
disrespecting me, or kid was disobeying me.
That's
I
it.
want this kid stoned."
Yeah. So really, you know, it's just to try to keep the kids in line, right? Say,
Yeah.
oh well, you know, you better finish your Brussels sprouts, or
else
we're gonna go to the elders.
That's a stoning matter, kid. Eat your broccolis.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's hilarious. You remember anything else?
Oh, that was the one that I thought was really funny. Because I don't think people would really take
No.
their kids to the elders and say, "Yeah, disrespectful, disobedient. Let's get the stones ready."
So there was another one. If you're laying siege to a town, yeah, it's okay to use regular trees to build siege mounts.
Yeah, that one's good.
But the thing is, if the neighbors that you're besieging have fruit trees, eat the fruit while you're there besieging, and you don't have to cut them down. And you remember the line?
The trees are not your enemies.
Literally. Now that's the Good News translation. It might be a little bit more, well, a little less, whatever. It's cute, I guess, the way it's. The trees are not your enemies. The fruit trees are not your enemies.
The oaks might be.
Yeah, exactly right. And of course, you treat the fruit trees with respect, but Jesus God, the way your enemies are supposed to be treated is pretty nasty. I mean, it's significant that I'm reading the Canadian Forces edition. It's not cleansing. Definitely not conversion. It's you wipe them out. You destroy them off the face of this earth. That's just genocide. That's all it is. So, when people say, when I say to them, it's just, I'm too true to be good. I'll say to them, Islam is violent. Look around, do a little bit of reading, and it's always has been, and it's violent now.
Oh, there's a tornado.
And almost invariably, well, what about Moses? He killed 3,000 people, in the wake of the Israelites worshiping the golden calf. Well, it's approximate,
Oh my gosh.
according to the source. Could have been a little bit less, could have been a little bit more. Or another one is, this is in more than one place in the Old Testament. At least 3, I'd say. Saul killed his thousands and David killed his 10,000s, and stuff like that. So they jump right on that. Or, as Edward Said does, well, Judaism and Christianity are violent too. Well, thank you, because you proved, or at least, not really to my satisfaction, but you've kind of,
Well, if you say
because you
two-
go to the sources.
If you say
I'm not
that's-
trusting Edward Said
if you
for
say
anything.
that's violent too, then you're saying, oh yes, well I do
You're
agree
just
that Islam
okay.
is violent.
Islam is violent.
Right.
That's right. Why would you say that? Like the whole thing is like anyone who says that well, Judaism is violent and Christianity is too. You know, like I go, I'm not trusting you because you're actually not quoting book, chapter, and verse and stuff like that. Why would I? So here's the deal. Judaism, the way it's written up, it is violent. There's its history. And I guess you'd have to call it like law. When they're doing the conquest. When was the conquest though? Well, the conventional dating would be, the traditional dating would be something around 1500 BC. It would work out that way. Conventional dating nowadays, according to archaeologists, historians, would be about 1200 BC. The actual dating, and this is based on science, so it's based on the canon of eclipses, and it's based on radiocarbon dating, uncalibrated, and it's based on preliminary data from dendrochronology. It all coheres. Also in Mesopotamian chronology, which is much better than anything else really in the world, even better than the Chinese tradition. Mesopotamian, once you use the Assyrian eponym canon, the actual dating for the Exodus would be roughly 1850 BC. The conquest is a little bit after that. According to the Bible, 40 years. I think it's maybe half that, 20 years after that. So we'll say roughly 1800 BC. How long ago is that? Ooh. It's almost 4,000 years. So what I'd say about Judaism is it was violent. And it really, after 135 AD, I really didn't have much of a chance to be violent. Maybe internally, but externally, no chance to be violent to other people. Yeah. Judaism was violent. Now, Christianity, at its inception, was not violent at all. I had violence visited on it. There might have been some violence internally in terms of suppressing heresy, but not violent. I mean, it was having violence visited on it from the outside, from the Romans and the Jews too. Paul, as the Roman Catholics and others style him, Saint Paul, was a Jew, and he was a persecuting mofo, really, and until he saw the light on the road to Damascus. He interpreted it like this, yes, I think it was Jesus saying, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? I think that'd be the King James Version. So it wasn't until Constantine, around 300, 325 AD, that they started to really hammer down on heresies, from what I can tell. Well, actually about 300 years after Jesus. And it wasn't until, was it Theodosius, coming up to 400 AD, they really started hammering heresies and hammering the pagans. So, to style Christianity as violent is really bad taste.
Yeah, it really is.
Now, Roman Catholicism, the stuff that was set up in the wake of Constantine, had its moments. And Protestantism, particularly when it's trying to break away from Roman Catholicism, had its moments too. Luther, Calvin, Jean Calvin.
I already lost one.
Had its moments too. But, you know, Christianity nowadays is pretty peaceful. I mean, you get people going around saying it's the most persecuted religion in the world. Percentage-wise, it isn't. Jews are still by far the most, I suspect, are the most persecuted. But the raw numbers of people getting killed by Muslims and communists of various stripes are hair-raising, really. So that's what I'm doing. You know, next task will be the New Testament, seeing how much violence there is there. There is a lot of violence, violent imagery having to do with the afterworld. But understand that stuff is there in Islam too. And from what I've seen in the Quran, it's way worse than the violent imagery having to do with the afterworld in the Quran vis-a-vis the New Testament. So I'm not here to cover up for any religion. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Jew. I'm not a Muslim. I don't really belong to any organized belief system. I'd style myself as a socialist who believes in sharing economic power, along with political power in the form of democracy in both cases. So you could call me a social democrat, but social democrats nowadays have so soiled the brand that I can't really call myself that anymore. They tend to be at least borderline anti-Semitic. Jeremy Corbyn's classic example. They tend to be for censorship. They tend to be for, in the form of tokenism and pressing for equality of outcomes and not equality of opportunity. They tend to be racist. They will pick out certain races that they will favor and certain other races that they don't just denigrate, but they will not treat as fairly, and they're classist. In other words, if you're the wrong color and the class that they should be supporting, the Social Democrats, they'll hammer white, lower, and lower middle class people. Bam! Lower middle class people have to pay taxes to pay for people who've made bad choices in their teens, sometimes a little bit later, made very bad choices, ended up being lumpen proletariat. And because they're getting bad outcomes from their bad choices, they end up getting bailed out by people who actually work. Working class people and lower middle class people. So Social Democrats, a long time ago, stopped representing the people that they're purporting to represent.